Hi everybody who is watching this. My name is Helena Papaj and I'm gonna introduce myself and tell a interesting story of like how all of this kind of like came to be and what was the desire that was calling me, you would say, or what was the purpose that was actually that is still actually evolving and kind of like flowing and kind of like being in this like existence and life, like through the vehicle that is me as a person, but also my business and what we bring into this world, and how it all began and where was like that the first kind of like seed, that started as like momentum and ambition and dedication and commitment beyond anything. I would say like commitment to like a good relationship, or being a parent is something that equals this. Commitment to business, the way I see it and the way I've created this as a vehicle for my purpose, and also like why it's so important for me that I keep teaching and I keep educating and I keep posting for the last, I think it's been like 6 plus 7 8 years now, that since I started talking about premium and worth, and not that worth is connected with the premium pricing, but like what we put into the offer and how we actually are with the clients and the transformation levels that we help them achieve with our element of work, if you will. Why is that so important, and why for me and in my perspective that should always be priced as something premium. And also, like, let me tell you a short story, like how that all started gaining momentum, right? So for those of you who are here with me for the first time, whether it's in my Facebook group, High End State of Mind, which you're all welcome to join, or on my Facebook profile, which is Helena Papes, or Instagram, which is the same, we would be happy to have you join our movement, right? And it's actually a movement that it's kind of like global, and it's something that started, I think, like when I kind of like hired my first business coach, and she was from the States, obviously, and was definitely encouraging me to start this business with this online predisposition, and also that it should be in English. And even though my English was back then good, it was not as good as it's obviously now, because everything takes practice, right? And even though I can speak, I think like four languages now fluently, right? Like I was not happy about having this like online business ran in English language, because everything that most of the things that I've studied, especially around NLP and everything around transformations and all the healing modalities that I've done were like in Slovenian language, right? So I was like, how am I gonna like translate all of this, right? And also kind of like have enough time and capacity, not just to coach my clients, not just to mentor my clients eventually, but also to be like, to have this much needed, like I need time to investigate and learn and have all this like new knowledge that either is going to come through in my meditative state of mind, which is like the superconscious mind, or more conscious, like kind of like teaching new methods of work or business or launches or marketing or like sales, or on the other end, so this is more the strategy part, right? Or on the other hand, kind of like the spirituality, the energetics of the feminine and masculine polarity, the universal laws, I don't know, for example, law of transmutation has always been one of my favorite ones, because it's kind of like how I started this like global company that is now globally based, obviously, and we help people create their genius-based 5-figure offers and 6-figure leaps in the most amazing, like fascinating like shortest time, right? Like, so it's kind of like everything that, and anything like things that I couldn't even like fathom when I started, right? Because I came from this like NLP coaching community, and I was this like new mom, and I was like really struggling with like like how with so much like expertise and knowledge and like all these different like online you know push and pulls with like, this is what you need for your business, and this is what you need to be at 7 figures, and this is how you need to structure it, and like everybody was just like making so much noise, and I found it like exhausting, and at the end of the days I would be like deeply frustrated and deeply like unsatisfied, because even though I think I've spent and invested in the business in those first 2 years, over 6 figures, like over like hefty over 6 figures into my business, I was still kind of like, but what is it, right? Because one coach would tell me one thing, another coach, the second coach would tell me a different thing, right? And then another mentor would tell me like, this is important, like energetics are, that's it, right? And I could just feel that like for me personally, and for me to have those like amazing client results that kept calling me, and I was just like, I didn't even know that this was possible, doable, how, who is doing this, like what is the level. But my desire was kind of like calling me, if you will, like whenever I would see people post about 25K days, or like mentor, or like universal laws, or energy, but also strategy, right? Like one-on-one work mostly, right? Like being at 7 figures with one-on-one clients, it just started to like slowly over the years kind of like crystallize, right? And I didn't even know back then that I was this like manifester by human design, that I'm just I'm just saying that just to put it out there, to be clear that I would always operate and kind of like live my life through having this idea or having this desire to go for something, not having a clue how how am I gonna go after this, like how am I ever gonna be like creating or selling, like, or teaching even, right? Like other people, like how to create 5-figure offers that are like genius based, which is the most amazing thing, because it keeps evolving, right? How am I going to teach about universal laws? How am I going to teach about manifestation? Because how I manifest things is most likely very different than others are manifesting things, like, right? Like how am I going to be like mentoring people to meet on that desire level, and like and have whatever is needed to show up without me even like previously knowing kind of like what all needs to happen on the sessions, or what all needs to be said, or that I will trust that the right thing will show up at the moment that needs to show up, so that my clients will have the best results in the shortest possible time frame. But even more important for me, that they will keep the transformation, that they will stay transformed, that they will have this not just financial success, but even like sometimes more important, the emotional growth, the intellectual, the mental kind of like stimulation, and that that they will now learn to think for themselves, that they will learn to actually tap into the intuition that is speaking to them, that they will actually be able to use the universal laws, or to use the like whatever speaks to them, and it's not my own kind of like method of work, but it's like their own, right? So this is kind of like where it all started. It was in deep frustration. I could be, and still am, when I'm having those transformative weeks or months sometimes, right? Like I can be like having this like visions and insights and kind of like thoughts about clients and things and their programs, and where this is going to show up and how this is going to look, and like sometimes even like the income leaps levels, right? And it's kind of like it's not necessarily like something that I would communicate with the client unless they ask me, unless we have a conversation around it. Then for sure they're gonna get this like burst of energy, right? And this kind of like quantum kind of like transformational levels of me just communicating that, right, through my throat, and being very, very vocal and supportive, you know, for their own desire to start actually manifesting in this world, right? And it's not as woo-woo as it sounds. It's very like mindset, but it's also like energetics, and it's also strategy, because we have to be like kind of like practical about things, right? And humans love to know, like, you know, how is this gonna also like come through. And even though we don't know the how, I just know that it's coming through, okay? And that's something that is the 100% belief that I always step into the, you know, client container, right? And that is already the vibe, right? Because if you have somebody who believes in the invisible, just because I have experienced it hundreds of times, like how it always comes through, right? Then no level of doubt the client has, and insecurities, and like, you know, low confidence or low self-esteem, like, right? Like we're all battling that, right? Like I was the worst at like even starting charging like 5 figures and allowing myself to go there. I was resisting my then mentor for for many months, even though I hired her because that was my desire and that was my like where I wanted to go. And I took it seriously, and I took it like I was studying, and I was like learning, and I was being mentored like every day, right? It was really like hardcore for my like mindset to shift from you know, charging 250 or maybe 500 or sometimes above that, right, for some type of one-on-one correction coaching as a fitness coach, or as the Chinese traditional massage therapist, right? And then then like shift that kind of like money picture, like money thermostat, right? And start kind of like seeing and acknowledging, oh my God, I have knowledge about this, I have knowledge about that, I have knowledge about high ticket sales, I have knowledge about actually how to be very intimate with clients from 10 years of being that you know, in the room with them as the tuina, right, massage therapist, right? I have the knowledge of people I know intuitively how to help people open up. I know exactly what kind of questions will help people become very intimate immediately and tell me all their like burdens, if you will, right? Like, so I have this like intuitive way of being very, very like intimate with humans, right? And so why is that so helpful? Because basically, if you want to be helping with your clients' biggest fears, sometimes you will need to like understand what is that fear, what is it coming from, like how to help client like coach them through that, like, right? And have that counter so that they actually feel, but also get the support that just takes them through, so we don't need to discuss it, we don't need to dabble into that, like we don't need to even, we don't go to this, like we don't go like for the story. And I just help clients to kind of like bridge over the story that, you know, they're like false self-created for why is this not going to be happening for them, right? Because that's where we get stuck so much, right? Like all clients of mine, like if you would allow them, you know, they would be just talking about their story all the time, right? Because that's just kind of like the very habitual kind of like how our mind is set, right? And if you ask somebody and if you like you know, they will talk about their story, like, you know, and how stuck they are and how in lag they are, or how like in need they are, right? Because that's how they feel, right? But the point when we're talking about the quantum leaps is actually that you stop talking about the circumstance that you don't want to be repeating anymore, right? And that's one of the first detoxes that actually starts happening when clients start working with me, is the detox of like, you are not allowed to complain, you are not allowed to, of course you are allowed to say what is going on, what happened, how are you feeling about it. I know everything about what is going on in your world, right? But it's like, it's the, without making it like that it's something that you want to stay like, right? So we want to start creating distance, right? We want to start creating distance from, you know, your habitual thinking, from your habits, from how your mind is wired, you know, to be maybe like complaining every day for 2 hours, right? Like, or, you know, feeling like a victim and all of those things, right? Like, because it's that level of awareness, or that level of consciousness that, you know, your human is, you know, you are at, right? And so you're kind of like, you think that that's all there is, right? But there are levels, there are layers, right? And it's not always the best way, you know, to be like over explaining about things and over exhausting yourself around, you know, I need to crack this and I need to solve this and I need to be doing like 100 things, right? Because the first and the most important step around this kind of like quantum leaping, and this was also my story, and at that time I was like very like, you want me to do what, like, you know. And even though I loved and respected my mentor, and I could just sense there was a lot of truth in what she was saying. Like, I was like, you want me to do what, like, right? Because it was just not about the doing, right? And she was like, I want you to go out and look at the stores, like look at the windows, look at the fashion, look at the jewelry, look at the beautiful things, go look for the cars, go and have a couple of rides in the most beautiful cars, in the most luxury cars. And everything inside of me was just like, no, like, I'm not doing that. It's like fake. I don't have the money. I was so broke, right? Broke because, you know, cash flow was invested back in the business and in mentors, right? So I was like so broke in that sense that, you know, I couldn't afford anything, you know, any of the things that I would be looking at. And my mind was just like, no, that's like, you know, that's fake. I don't want to do that. Like, fake it till you make it, right? That's nonsense. That's BS, right? And then she would be like, and like, go and spend some time with, you know, people who are very kind and generous and kind of like, you know, will, you know, go and treat yourself like with having great company, and go and, you know, just have a cup of tea in this beautiful 5-star hotel in the capital, Ljubljana. And I was just like, I can't afford that. Like, what do you think? Like, you know, this is the crappiest advice ever, right? And then she was like, and I want you to go and flirt with like, you know, men, and like get back into the vibe. And I was just, after a horrible breakup, like my heart was broken and I was like just shattered to pieces. And I was with my daughter and I was just like, I'm never ever gonna be dating again, right? Because I was just done with men, right? And men were stupid, and men were like ridiculous and not not honest, liars, like you name it, right? So this was like 6 years ago, I think, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, yeah, and 5 years ago, yes. And I just moved, managed to manifest this beautiful house that I actually would love to live in. But eventually it got sold, so we only stayed there for a year before we moved here. And then I was like, what is, like, I don't have time to be flirting, and I don't have time to be like, you know, dressing up and playing games and seeing this men that I have no intention of dating because they're all, you know, it's not really worth it. Like, I need sound advice. I need money. I need you to help me to get money. That's the plan, right? I need you to help me to establish, like, make this business work for me long run, right? And I would just like have many conversations with that mentor, and she was just like, stop resisting, like just listen and trust me, right? And so I eventually kind of like had to give in because nothing else was working, you know. It's that moment where you're like being stubborn and in resistance, and you think that it's all about the doing. And I was just posting those really great longish posts, and we worked on them behind the scenes for days, right, before I would be posting them. And like it was just everything and anything, like it was just my whole mind was just revolving around work and mindset and universal laws and riches and manifesting millions. And I was like listening to on repeat, like it was like Bob Proctor, David Nagel, all the old audiobooks on riches and wealth and manifestation, and then later on flourishing, and like anything that I could get my hands on, YouTube's, like meditations, like anything that it would put me into this, like closer to this like millionaire mindset, right? And kind of like cracked me up. And I was like so close. I was like this close. Like I was like investing in this. I was working towards this. I spent I think it was like close to 2 years before any like significant shift would actually show, or maybe like 11-12 months before the first sale. But that was like from another, like it was more like relationship manifestation based. It was not this, like, right? So I was really struggling with it because I want results fast. I want them now. I want them to like manifest, right? And I couldn't see how in that masculine role I was, right? And I was just like, do, and like, I'm doing all the things. Like, why isn't this working, right? And I just remember when I was so like frustrated, and I was just talking to my NLP friends, and they couldn't really understand what I was like trying to do, right? So it was just kind of like nobody was like getting me, and I was just like so deeply frustrated that I would be like crying and just feeling so alone, and just like this is never gonna work, like all the fears, all the doubts, everything was just like there on the floor. And weekends when I wouldn't have my daughter because she was staying at her dad's, like I would just be like working and reading and studying, right? And then my mentor said, like, stop being such a hard coachy or mentee. You have to do this, right? And we were working on some other like we were working with also like the dynamic of the feminine and masculine polarity, and kind of like with the whole kind of like sexual transmutation energies, right? And so I was studying that a lot as well, right? Because I had some massive like private issues in that area, trust issues, and I was just like trying to shift on so many levels that I was just like exhausted until Sunday evening I would be just like exhausted of all the studies, but like also like deeply fulfilled, and kind of like where is this taking me? Like I was taking in so much, right? And then like again, another week would go, no sales, right? I was so frustrated because that was not what I was used to. Like I came from this well-paid manager position, and my pay was really well, like the space was beautiful, right? But they laid us off. Like it was when it was the recession, they kind of like fired us, like 80% of us, right? And so I was so like, what? Like how do I create money on my own, right? In this position, in this new way, in this online space, because that's something that I've never done before, even though I've been an entrepreneur, having my own projects and kind of like working as an entrepreneur, having my own business since I was like 19, 20, right? And so this is kind of like, but then it was brick and mortar, and I knew how to sell that, like, right? And now it was like just a very different, like, creation, right? And so I wanted to be prepared. I wanted to be ready. That's how I roll, right? I would never be like inviting people to work with me unless I have, people that are here to be working with me while I'm working with people on the things, right? So that's the best way that I figure out, how I can learn faster. But it was also kind of like allowing myself to be so vulnerable, to not be like all the time perfect, in the sense of like I need to have it all figured out, because I figured out that I rarely have it all figured out, and that's the best position to be in for me, because then on the sessions, client would actually get very fresh, very like insightful, and very like quantum leapy vibes for me and transform with that. And if I would have any like prepared in that sense, like that just wouldn't then come through, right? And there's a huge difference between sessions where we're like more prepared and maybe we're working more on the creative side of the new clients' creative offers, and there are some like ideas and it just flows, right? And then sometimes when I would be just like none of that, and the client would just come with like whatever is the issue, whatever is actually bothering them, maybe around the belief system, maybe around their wounds, maybe around like they're having troubles with being the dreamer, the visionary, believe in that vision, right? And like then whatever would come through as a vessel would be just so much more powerful in that sense. And I just loved those sessions. Both sessions are awesome, right? But like there's a high quality to both of them for sure, right? And so this is kind of like when I started not just using the laws of the universe and all of that, but also where I would just be like have to trust my mentor and be like, okay, so what do you want me to do? Because she was like, you need to go out and you need to have fun, and you need to be like, you need to allocate, I don't know, $100 dollars, if you will, right? Or something like that. And I was like, I had no money for the first couple of months that I moved, because the person that I moved away from kind of like didn't want to communicate that with me and resisted to having any like meaningful communication. And I was just so embarrassed and ashamed, and I didn't want to ask for help because I felt that I was like bringing this on myself, and like why was I so, and like just the whole thing that you feel like the whole spiral of like shame and being heartbroken and having to like making the decision to actually leave the relationship. And we made that decision together, but it was my decision to be stepping out of it in that sense, because things were not like moving and progressing the way we agreed that they would, and I just couldn't be in that situation anymore, on many levels. But I'm not going to go into that story now. But so basically, the person owed me some money and didn't want to like respect that, and I hated that. Like I was owed money, I was struggling with money, I was investing money, really high money in mentors, and I was just so afraid, right? Like what if this doesn't come through? What if I mess it up? Like what if this is not gonna end well, right? Like all the fears and all the doubts every time, right? And so that's when I discovered and started my own morning routines and found great like that was something that really grounded me. So it was like my morning walk with maybe some audios, maybe some meditation music, like maybe just nothing, right? But walking for sure, and then of course morning meditation or self-hypnosis, right? Because that's something that I use all the time. And also kind of like finding and figuring out with my mentor back then, right, that it was important for me to have fun, and finding places and spaces and actually schedule that in. So I would actually start kind of like going on drinks, not dating per se, but just going on drinks and getting to know people, new people, and meet people, and be kind of like in that a little bit flirty vibes, right? And talk, right? And see where people are coming from and what they're like, dealing with, and have fun and be like, more free and kind of like in that feminine, right? And dress up and be, picked, with a car, and then, kind of like treated like a lady and then brought home, and kind of like, so that really helped me to go and kind of like feel more appreciated and kind of like seen and heard. And like, and I met so many like amazing humans in that period of time, in that year or so, right? And it really helped me to find that. And also with all the like, and kind of like energetic work that I did around the sexual transmutations, because it's so important. And especially for the people who have this like very like high sex drive, like how to transmute that, like how to use it as a creative source, how to use that in your sex life, how to use that in your like sales process, how to use that in your like everyday kind of like presence, right? And I was studying high ticket, I was studying laws, I was studying the sexual transmutations, right? I was studying a lot, right? And so allocating time for having fun and to be feminine and to be in the receiving mode was actually the thing that started to shift all my like doing into more like the being, right? And the first time that I could actually be so free and so joyful and dance and move and like be, you know, some people would call that in the goddess vibe, or to be in that like, you know, so me, because you know I'm the girl who grew up in front of MTV, because I would just dance all the time. And you know, in my 20s I would just dance all the time, no alcohol, nothing, but just dancing, because that was like my truest expression. And I've been, you know, a dancer, going to dance schools and all that for like, I don't know, 10 years, everything, you know, how do you say it? Cumulative. So dance has been a huge part of my life, and it's very important for this like feminine energy, like so that you, if that's your thing, like it, maybe it's not, but it for sure is mine, right? But it's like the music and the dance, besides the sexual energies, and besides the some of the other, right? Like kind of like an they very much influence our energy, and we can like regulate our energy system with those very simple, you know, things that is, you know, it's very much like it's a reachable, you know, it's for everybody, it's available for everybody because it's for free, and it's something that you can do every day, right? And then sports and exercise and sleep, of course, right? And like having this calm and regulated like state of mind, and kind of like regulated nervous system, right? And so that was all that I was like learning about, and it started to really show, because I stopped being so like responsive, or I stopped being so like explosive, or like I stopped being so angry, if you will, right, at some of the things. And I could just obviously see that I started having this like gap. Like if people would be like talking to me or sending me something or whatever that would normally upset me, like immediately, and I would just react, I could just see that I was like giving myself a day or two or a week sometimes before I would even like respond. If I, you know, or I would give myself that time, or I would respond like, you know, I need some time to think about this, let me like sleep on it a couple of, like, right? So I would just start to give myself more space to be, to feel, right? To actually kind of like figure out, like to feel into it and figure it out, like on many different levels, not just the thinking, not just the conscious mind, right? Because I could just sense that it was like so much more important for myself to be like how do I want to be running my business? How do I want to be showing up? Like how do I want to be doing marketing? Because like everybody was doing their own thing, right? And I couldn't like, I didn't resonate with any of them necessarily, right? Like, and then so I had to figure out my own way of doing marketing, right? And for me, the one thing that was the most important thing was, and something that so many coaches who are like, this is the way you have to do it, right? It was just like, for me, the most important thing out of this, and this is something that I use with all of my clients, was there is no one way, okay? And all of this and stuff that I haven't even discussed, like one of the things that I use when I have that super conscious call with my clients, that we actually tap into their soul table, which is you are actually getting on a meeting with your soul, with yourself, with your soul clients, and with your soul offer, right? And this is the method that I've created from family constellations method of work that I worked with for around 2 years when I was living in Denmark. And it's a phenomenal way of actually going just directly to the superconscious mind and seeing like what is happening, like what is the truth, right? because conscious mind is going to be like stories and all the why I cannot, like unconscious mind is always going to be like why I cannot, right? And when you go into this like super conscious mind, is this like infinite possibilities, infinite like love and infinite like, you know, support, right? And so the balance between the two is kind of like we meet halfway. And so what is there, right? So we need to be grounded, but we need to also have this like vision that it's clear and it's like bold and it's like brilliant and it's like beautiful, right? But we need to be grounded, yes, so we can do the work, so we can show up, so we can be on time, so we can, you know, so that we can be congruent, that whatever we see, whatever we speak, whatever we think, whatever we feel is actually coming through how we say it and what we're saying, right? And that's actually translating in like how are we doing this life, right? And so that people can actually trust us, right? Because if people don't trust you, then people will not be able to like invest in you. But it's not just about the money, it's also like the things that are more important, which is time or love, right? Or commitment, right? Or, you know, becoming a parent is such a like huge commitment that for me it was such a massive like work of faith, actually. And before I did that, like before my mind shifted into oof, I'm committing for this, like for this role of being a parent for life, like before I shifted and became ready for that, like you know, the baby would not come through, because that's just like how I work and operate. Like if I don't give myself permission to do something, or if I don't actually call in my manifestation, it's not coming, right? It's not just something, it's how manifestors work. It's something that I've discovered in the last 2 years. I didn't know that before, but that's how I've been operating my whole life, right? So my intuition has always been spot on. It was always just my mind, like the unconscious, like it was always just that resistance. That's why things were not speeding up, or that's why things were not flowing. And the fear, okay, and the attachment to the fear, and the belief that the fear was telling me something that was not, okay. So the fear was telling me, oh no, you should stop, this is not the way to go, right? Because for me the fear is something that needs to be managed, right? And I've learned over the years more and more, like, you know, how to manage it, right? How to regulate it, nervous system regulations, energetic exercises, energetic methods of work that I've paid my coaches to teach me, right? Because fear was such a huge thing that I thought I had like anxiety, but it was like just fear, because whenever I would like decide something, fear would be like the next, like it was just like fear, right? And it would be so intense that I wouldn't be able to sleep for like days, and you know, and every time I would make like a commitment, it would be like, you know, fear, right? Or every time that I would be like, you know, doubting myself, then fear is like, it gets even stronger, right? So it was so much about mastering those energetics. And I can see now, like if I would have, you know, you can really have those ups and downs in terms of like energetics, right? And then your cash flow is flowing that, because I will not be always like having a good day to be with the clients. And now that I've learned to regulate that, like I always have a good day to be with the client and to be available. But there are also days that I'm totally unplugged and I'm not available for anything, right? And it's like learning how your energetic system needs to be run is actually very different than from, you know, how people are telling you that, you know, you should be running your business, period, right? And then having a small team, having a big team, like what actually resonates with you, not like how you see, you know, that other people are doing it, because how they're doing it is maybe totally off for you, right? And so I had some really hard, like, you know, hard lessons in those terms. And I've tried everything, because my way of learning is through trying. So I need to go and try stuff, and then I can actually have an opinion on it, right? And so that's something that, you know, I'm a firm believer for me, right? And then I can teach others and tell them, well, this is what works. We can try this and we can try that, but like it needs to resonate, it needs to align. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be challenging. It's going to be challenging, in and exciting and like scary, to some degree, which is always, something showing you that you're actually moving into some unfamiliarity, which is a good thing, right? Because whatever you're familiar with right now is also kind of like what's keeping you where you're at, right? And that's why when I started creating this own method of work, the 4 months process called Genius Codes, I incorporated everything that I've been talking about today. Everything was incorporated in that. And with this massive like title of like, clients get to do this like on their own, like how, I mentor with the client, but it's also like I am tailoring everything around how they need to be doing their business, right? Because it's not ever going to be just like my way, because my way doesn't work for you. Like I just want to be at 7 figures plus. I want to be at multi 7 figures, but most likely with just one-on-one clients. That's kind of like that desire that has been on my trajectory for many years now, right? So what does that mean? That means high ticket offers. That means ultra high ticket offers, right? That means that my skill as the expert, as the mentor, my genius, right? It's like I need to be working on that constantly, right? And evolving that, because then people will of course trust me, because I'm going to be congruent in my and I'm already now charging for 100K level per year if you look at my one-on-one offers. But it's like that's one part of the work, right? And I am thinking about actually offering a 12 months or 11 months process with 1 month off for those people who have already worked with me, right? Because I need to actually understand how you're working so that I can be of greatest benefit to you, right? But so I'm working on that. I'm working on the 11 months process, 12 months process, because many people are like, we would love to stay with you for a longer time, and that's kind of like going to be available at 100K level. I've had that for I've offered that only to my one-on-one clients who have been with me for a certain period of time, because then I also know and trust them, how they go about things, and it's easier for everybody involved, right? But otherwise, the Genius Codes process is the 4 months process, and we basically create your signature offer, which is based on your genius, that we spend time researching what your genius is, and then we market and we sell that offer with you, right? So it can be in some sort of like a live event. Some people call this like a launch, right? Like whatever is your preference. We've done IG launches or live events, right? That have accumulated she did 150K in like 60 days of selling, and she is actually on track now to 500,000 this year, my former client, right? And she wants to we're going to be having a strategy session for what is next for her, right? So you can really do this however like you want to be doing this. It's not just about the price. We are not superficial. Like I know everything about, I've been in so many masterminds and group like settings, and also with one-on-one coaches. I know how people do this, right? I don't do this like anybody else is doing this. I can just tell you this much. We go into subconscious levels, we go into the superconscious levels. I will stimulate you, I will work with you, I will give you my own, I will create hypnosis for you for your own very specific, like how your mind works and what is actually what it's resonating with, right? And how we can open you up for 6 and 7 figures levels of success, right? And kind of like happiness, and that who you are as a being, as a woman, as you step into this is hugely important to me, right? Because we get to be better as women in that sense, and mothers and parents, when we're like so fully driven with our passion and our desire, right? And that's why when we talk about the desire, and you can look at the post that I posted before I posted this video, it is so much about that, right? Because if when I was like so heartbroken, and then my bank account was like empty, and I was just like, you know, what is it, what is it trying to come through, like what is it that I'm like, what is my next segment of life gonna be about, right? And you know, when things like, you know, 5-figure offers and 6-figure offers and 6-figure leaps and 7-figure incomes, like when that started popping up those 5 years ago, I was like, I didn't believe it, I didn't like trust it, right? But I did receive it, and I did start investing, learning, studying, researching, doing the work, right? So that I could become that vehicle, right? So now, like 5 years ago, people were doing like 25K sales or 10K sales, or was it 150K or something like that in like 12 months, like, and prior to that they were making maybe like 20K or 50K a year. It was those types of leaps. Right now it's gained momentum, so people are doing like 150K in 60 days, 100K in 90 days, 326 in 7 months, right? 325 in 12 months, right? Like, so the momentum is like, it's more like it's just getting bigger and bigger, and I'm so excited about this, right? And it's like, the moment like some things start to like align for me, I will know exactly like what the code is, and I will know exactly, like, I already know, right? And I'm practicing this like with one of my latest clients now, right? Like the moment we step into this work, like she's gonna be stepping into the 7-figure kind of like steps and codes, right? And it's like, this is where the work is, right? And this is where the desires are taking us, and this is the work that I'm here for. Okay, so I hope this was understandable and kind of like interesting and inspiring, right? But also to show you that, you know, letting go of the control and upping your like honest like interest and research and being highly invested, because you have so much that you can like learn from, and at the same time allowing yourself to invest in people who have been there and done that, right? And then seeing, you know, like, take the gold nuggets, right? And be super creative with that, and just run with it, and just create, you know, multi 6-figure leaps and 7-figure businesses. Like, I'm here for that. Okay, 100 women at $1 million, you know, plus dollar businesses. Like, I'm all here for that. Okay, thank you so much for being here with me. I did this actually, I pre-filmed this because Facebook is giving me issues again. I forgot to say this in the beginning. So I'm just kind of like gonna post this everywhere. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was inspiring, and I would love to hear your like story and how you went about this, and what do you feel is your desire. And I can't wait to reconnect with you for the day 3. Bye.